Kate McManus is the owner and founder of Devon Pinkett, a Philadelphia-based floral and event design studio creating weddings and celebrations throughout the East Coast and beyond. Kate's work begins with flowers, but it reaches into the full design of an event, the color, the texture, atmosphere, and the feeling of the room. With a background in fashion design and a sharp eye for visual storytelling, she helps couples turn those ideas into something personal and tangible. We've known Kate for well over a decade, and we're so lucky to have her with us today. In this conversation, Kate joins us to talk about creativity, communication, disability, design, and how her experience as a hearing impaired artist and business owner has shaped the way she observes, advocates, and collaborates and creates. So welcome to Talk of the Aisle, Kate. We're so happy to have you
Thank
here.
you. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor. I love you guys and have been a
Oh,
fan of you forever. So,
Feeling is mutual.
yeah. And we just worded it as over a decade because we were like, how like when it's so hard to know at this point because we've all been doing this so
Yeah.
long.
And you
I
rebranded
know.
during that time because you were, what were you before Devon and Pinkett?
So before I was Devon and Pinkett, I was Kate Farley Design, and I had started actually with doing chalkboard designs and hand lettering, and I had somehow gotten onto Philly Magazine's list of like hand letterers to work with, and I was like, oh, okay. and and so it was very exciting for me because I did not start with any intention of getting into weddings. I just liked doing it.
Yeah.
And I had been doing it for Whole Foods for as a graphic designer. And I guess, brides were coming into the store and they were like, "Oh, I love this sign. Can you make it for my wedding?" And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
I
So it was
love
Wow.
pretty
that.
amazing. Yeah.
So that's your origin story into this industry.
Yeah, pretty much. I had no idea about weddings and then yeah, it was kind of wild, to just kind of dive in head first, not knowing. I mean, I obviously had gone to school for design, I went to I
Yeah.
went to school for fashion and it's not like I just came out of nowhere, but it
Yeah.
was it was interesting kind of dipping into the wedding
Yeah.
industry after being in fashion for so long. So, yeah.
It,
So chalkboards, that's taking me back to 2012.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah.
the
And
mason
that was
jar
like the
era.
thing.
Yeah, those the mason jar.
We
Yeah.
have seen so
Yes.
many different eras.
Oh yeah, it was such a different world back then. Yeah.
What's interesting too about your story of how you got in here is weddings kind of found you versus you
Yeah.
seeking them out, right? Like,
Yeah.
which is cool. Whereas like us, we dabbled and then fell in love and then went full force,
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people's common thing is there's an intentionality where for you people are like, hey, psst, come do weddings, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
The wedding gods
Yeah.
were like, come,
yeah.
Kate, come.
Yes. Pretty much. That's exactly how it happened, you know?
So then fast forwarding to now, can you just tell us a little bit about Devin and Pinkett and the kind of work that you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely evolved. It took a very different course, It went from lettering and chalkboard signs to graphic art, and then I was doing, I had been asked to do flowers for a wedding and then a baby shower, and I fell in love with flowers. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, just looking at a single flower, sometimes still I will be like caught dead in my tracks just looking at a flower, thinking like, how is this real? And so it's kind of a gift for me to be able to put those things together for clients in a way that's like, very personal. And I like being able to come up with the entire story rather than just focusing on just the flower or just the chalk lettering. Not that we're doing that much anymore, but I really like to create a picture for my clients. I feel like, for me, it's like such an honor and a passion of mine to be able to like sit down with a couple in love and their families and their parents and just kind of hearing what they want out of the celebration it's really cool to me that I can piece it together and bring it to life for them. I really do take it very seriously. And it's there's nothing better than seeing them happy on the wedding day, not just from getting married, but also just from walking into the room and being like, this is what we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just no better feeling than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, for the longest time, I was like obsessed with the design and the details, and I still am. But now I feel like it's become more about my connection to these people
Mm-hmm.
and just like how I can dig deeper into their story and
Right.
and just like who they are and listening to what they want. Um, it's ironic, being hearing impaired, I'm a very good listener. So I think you kind of have to be. So I definitely listen on a much deeper level. I mean, I can't speak for others, but I feel like I really do listen on a much deeper level and try to like get into not just like what they're saying, but just also like how they are as people and the
Yeah.
vibe they want to create.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, now it's really more about the bigger picture than it is just flowers or
Yeah.
Right.
just signage.
Yeah.
And I love it. I think it's so much fun for me.
Yeah,
Ex-
So
sorry. That is music to my ears because basically what I'm hearing you say is, yeah, aesthetically, you care about it looking beautiful, of course, but there is just
yeah,
like there's a layer deeper than that. It's like how can your design make them feel something? Like when they walk into that room, that's going to blow them away. That's going to give them goosebumps. It's going to be like, "Oh my gosh," like literally takes their breath away. And that's like and the connection I feel like is so important.
yeah,
And I do think that that's something that maybe separates you from some people because you do care about like that deeper connection of like the why.
Well, and I
yeah,
think, yeah, like I also was thinking like there's an evolution of the work that we do in this industry where it is starts off as just about the thing that you do. And so the flowers or the photographs, and then you start to care more also, or start to also care about the people more deeply and really understanding what they want and translating that into reality. And then even further is, you know, caring about the experience that you're providing to them as well and how the actual interaction is to work with you because that goes into the whole experience of how they see the work you do, right? So like everything matters, and I feel like every other episode we do I say this, like everything matters, so like the intention is such an important part. So it's cool
yeah.
that you started out here but you just keep kind of going higher and evolving by going deeper.
Yeah, I was gonna say higher and also deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so much more satisfaction in that, To me, it's like
Yeah, absolutely.
it's more than just creating I mean, like you guys can capture things so beautifully and amazingly and that's like I love the emotion behind it. And it's like
Yeah.
for me, it's like I want to capture the essence of them and the essence of the day. And I don't want it to feel like it was just something else for social media, for likes, for clicks, like I want it to
Yeah,
be something that they can look back on in 10, 20 years from now and still get that feeling of like, oh, that was such an amazing day. Like
yeah,
I want
yeah,
them to feel that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just because it is supposed to be like one of the biggest days of your life. And
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's too much pressure to say the best day of your life
Yeah.
because like there's so many best days of our lives,
Right,
Yeah.
but
right.
it
But
should be like
yeah,
yeah.
but it
Should
is
be like one of
true.
their biggest days.
Right.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it is true. And I say this like every meeting we ever have. Like, this is truly a once in a lifetime event. Um, Maybe not the most important, but it's once in a lifetime. Like, you'll never have these people in the same room together again. Some people may
Yeah.
not be there to be in the same room, because things change and it's important. It's so important,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even from just like a marriage standpoint, but just as all the people that you love are here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it also as we get older and having
We're
children
so young. What do you
and
think?
having children is a special part of that experience too, but like you realize how important these days are because they just get better with age. It's like these experiences are like wine, you know, in that they can just get richer and
Yeah.
richer. So I think it's such a wonderful thing for us to be able to have a small part in that experience for them, you know, and like what you do with event design and florals, like that's a huge part of that because they're walking into space that you're creating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we just get to capture it. So thank you for doing all the hard work. But like,
No problem.
yeah, but
Here,
like,
please.
you know, and that also makes me think like because obviously most people introduce you or think of you first as a florist, but obviously your work goes beyond that with the design work. So what is the difference to you between like being a florist but also being a designer?
I mean, I think, being a florist is just using flowers and I mean, well, I don't want to I don't want to make any florist mad, but like to me, floral design in of itself is just assembling the flowers and it's just putting together, whatever the color palette is of the day,
Mm,
using it in a way with beautiful flowers and capturing it in a pretty container and making sure that but I think, event design as a whole is really making sure that those flowers are communicating a bigger picture. They're just a small piece in the bigger picture, and
Yeah.
mm,
I think that the flowers obviously communicate the color palette, but we can play with the mood, with the vibe with it. Like if you want it to be tight and contrived, it's going to feel very classic and formal, and
Yeah.
mm,
if you want it to be more loose and organic and wild, it's going to be more relaxed. There's more of a dynamic to it rather than like, something like a ball of hydrangea, which is going to feel very buttoned up. So I think that, the
mm,
style of the flowers really can change the vibe of a setting. And then pair that with the lighting, with the
Yeah.
napkin colors, the linen, the chair, what kind of candles you're using, what kind of, music there is. Like all of that really shifts the vibe in such a major way. And that's really what I've been so focused on, more so than just like the individual flowers, is like,
Yeah.
how can I change the entire vibe of the room? And, I have a client who's talking about wanting, this party vibe, but also wants it to be very elegant and classic and, like an Italian style dinner. And so that's been a really fun challenge for me is like marrying the two concepts of like, making it feel like a fun party, but also very romantic and
mm,
beautiful. So I love those kind of challenges because it goes
Yeah.
deeper into it's not just the color palette. It's not
Yeah.
just, it's also like it's finding ways of evoking that mood with texture, pattern, different flatware, different glassware, all those
Yeah.
things inadvertently will shift people's perception of like what that room and space feels and looks like.
Yeah.
They're so subtle, but it definitely does make like a huge difference at the end of the day. And sometimes I have to visibly show my clients, like take them to a showroom like party rental or, like a place where they have flatware and linens and they'll see how just a simple transformation takes it from meh to oh my god, so
Yeah.
mm,
it's just a matter of like educating the client in that is showing them visually. I'm a visual person, so I like to show people what that looks like.
Yeah.
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 So
And I think a lot of people, and I don't want to say that they're not visual people, but a lot of people need that assistance of like, they need to be shown what is possible, right?
yeah,
Because our brains aren't typically, for most people, wired to see the possibilities. So
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
showing them. There's this one. So the past "Love Is in the Air." I just want to talk about your part in it because it like I loved it. So you were teamed up with Tiffany Chalk, which we love her. Shout out to Tiffany.
Yeah.
But her room, her section was so it was art. So it was like dancing. What was the? It was art, right? That was the
Yeah. It was like love in or composition in bloom or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I loved how, like, when you think about art, you think about, like, paintings on the wall and, like that type of art gallery. And what I love that you guys did was instead of that, you literally made your floral pieces art. And then you had pin spots to, like you were walking through a gallery and, like, each piece of what you created was art in itself. And I like admired it so much because like what you do is art. Like your
Yeah.
creations are, they're tangible pieces of like art that you walk into. It's like an experience that you walk into. And then the one piece was where it was like a collaborative thing where guests could grab, what was the flowers? They were like the,
They were calla lilies and I think carnations.
yeah, and then they could
Yeah.
place them in this. Well, how would you describe
It
it?
was so Tiffany had asked to make like she had asked them to make like it was basically a large frame that had it wasn't chicken wire, but it was something similar. It was some kind of like wire where you could weave the flower into the wall.
Yeah,
And yeah, yeah. I mean, I Tiffany was she was the brains on that and she just did such an incredible job and it was just so fun to be a part of that because it really was like I wanted to showcase the florals like their art,
yeah,
because you really probably could see something like that in a museum, if it
absolutely.
was like, sculpture. I mean, but this is living, so it makes it
Yeah.
even more interesting.
Yeah, and then that piece where that interactive piece where people where guests were adding flowers, like that in itself became its own little art piece. And so I just
Yeah.
wanted to like point that out because she
Yeah.
definitely picked the right person for her team.
Yeah. So I didn't get to go. So I wish I saw that, but that makes me think whether it's an individual florist or getting a group together, I think that would be a pretty amazing show to do at a gallery where you each are submitting a piece or you have a series of pieces that maybe is there for a week because obviously these are living things and just kind of like the slow, you know, demise of the art or whatever you want to say, I
Yeah.
think could be a really interesting thing and kind of bring a new appreciation to it. Because, like when you were talking about with event design, seeing flatware in person and the differences and combinations, like how helpful that is for people because it's the same thing as like a person who isn't educated in art going to an art gallery and just being like, okay, this is nice. But then when they understand it or if they learn more about it, then there's such a deeper appreciation. And then moving forward, the way they look at those things again changes forever, right? So I think
Yeah.
this is a tangent, but I just think that would be such a cool idea. And maybe we'll do that with a gather event. We'll do like an art show, but we're being florists to bring a piece of art and then it's a gallery opening. They'll
Yeah,
learn,
that would
they'll,
be so cool.
yeah, that would be really interesting.
You've got a lot of ideas flowing lately. Let's try to
No, we're gonna do
slow
that.
down.
Maybe next year, but we're gonna do that.
No,
Um,
I fully support that idea. I think that's
Yeah,
amazing.
and then doing
You
like
know,
a
it's
time lapse of it.
yeah, like yeah, to be
That would
able.
be really
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Just like I feel like what I love about flowers too is it like forces you, I mean, I've heard this said, but it does force you to kind of be in the moment. And that's what I like about events too. It's not forever. It's like literally 5, 6 hours of a day.
Yeah.
And so you're forced to take in everything and just be in the moment and not be on our phones and not I mean we're all guilty of like
Yeah.
scrolling and doing all that. I mean it's just a part of the world we live in now, but so that's what I love so much about flowers and events is it like takes us out of that, or hopefully it does anyway, and
Yeah.
really like forces us to live in the moment and enjoy it while it's there. And I
Yeah.
think you're right, like what you said earlier, like as we get older we do appreciate things a little bit on a much more deeper level and a little bit more there's so much depth to experiences now because we realize that they're fleeting, I mean,
They're so
especially
fleeting.
yeah, and it's
And
kind of
flowers
like
are fleeting, right?
yeah.
Everything is fleeting.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever heard of Memento Mori? It's like, it's about like in looking at death and not being scared of it, but
Yeah.
just like appreciating it,
Yeah.
and recognizing there is an end to it, but
Yeah.
also like so really taking that and saying we have to be in the moment with it. And so I think that's one of the things I love about flowers and events in general is it kind of forces you to be right there and be present
Yeah.
in a world that's like constantly taking us away from that.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, wow. I did. Yeah. I never. And even flowers. Like I can appreciate the beauty of flowers, but tying it to kind of life itself because it condenses that experience of life into a short period of
Very
time.
short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Man,
like you said, with all the people, all your favorite people, I mean, that's probably never going to happen again.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, it's not, you don't want to look at it like it's sad. It's a
yeah,
beautiful thing.
It's a
right.
Yeah.
beautiful
Something to
thing.
cherish. And then even
Absolutely.
if it doesn't, the wedding doesn't work out and you get to have a second wedding, then that's cool too. You get to do it again. And then we all get hired again. I'm just kidding. Um,
Yeah, you never know.
sorry, we're not promoting divorce.
Some people it takes 3 times, so whatever.
Yeah,
Not promoting divorce, but just I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit, because in thinking about how you're translating what your couples are saying into you into like reality and your designs, is there something like you're listening for specifically, like in the words that they say, that help you kind of figure out how to navigate that, or I'm just curious about that process.
Yeah, so I actually just had a call with a client last night, with a prospective client last night, and I try to listen to not. I like to listen to what their personalities are like. Some clients are really bubbly, and some are very sophisticated, and there's hardly any humor. It's very straightforward,
Yeah.
and I love all of them. Like I love all the different personalities because it makes my job so fun to be a part of. Like to listen and meet so many interesting people. Um, but for me, I think it's really kind of like listening to the root of what they want their wedding to be like, and then finding a way to translate the overall look to match that. So, if they keep saying, I want it to be a party, I want it to be fun, I want it to be this, or if they're like, I want it to be so romantic, or I mean, and this may be cliched, but if it's like I take those cues and use them to kind of help me
Yeah.
articulate what I'm thinking of in terms of like how the florals should be assembled, or what colors would work for them. And if they are more classic, then I know to kind of keep it less crazy on the color palette, and maybe go a little more subdued. But if they are looking for like the party and the dynamic, I will be throwing out colors combinations like let's do chartreuse and red and magenta, and just really pushing the limit to see how far they'll
Let's go
kind of.
wild.
Yeah, yeah, because some people want it, all of that, and
Yeah.
I personally like when people want to go all out with
Oh,
color.
me too.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, bring the life.
Yeah,
Not that
yeah,
the subdued couples don't bring the life, but just
But you need both. You
yeah,
need to have
the balance.
the whites, right? Of like,
yeah, and the
simple,
blush, and
yeah.
yeah,
Um, referring to color flowers, of course. Um, but yeah.
yeah.
Um, so do you want to ask the next question? Do you want me to keep going? Okay, okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the hearing impairment side of things. So you shared that it's obviously shaped the way that you move through your life and your work. Can you tell us a little bit about your specific type of hearing loss and like whatever feels comfortable to that?
Yeah, sure. So I have what's called a sensorineural hearing loss, and there's really two kinds. There's sensorineural, and then there's another kind. I forget what it's called. It's not as common, but
Yeah.
it's when you have like if you got hit in the head really hard, or you had really severe illnesses, something like that can cause hearing loss as well, but it's not quite the same. Sensorineural is when either the cord from the brain to the ear gets damaged, whether it be in birth or during illness, or whatever it may be, or the cilia, which are like the tiny little hairs in the cochlear. Um, they fall, and once they fall, the sound that travels through doesn't process. It's almost like if you were playing a piano and some of the piano keys are not tuned or they're not quite working.
Mm.
They still make some kind of sound, but it's not going to be the same. So a lot of people think that, because you're hearing impaired, you just can't hear at all. And that's not always the case. There's so many different levels of hearing loss. There's obviously there's like normal, and then it goes all the way down to profound. So I have pretty much a profound hearing loss
Mm.
in my left ear, and then in my right ear, it's severe to profound. So that basically means like out of my left ear, I can only hear like, fireworks, gunshots, like really loud banging noises. And then on my other ear, I can hear dogs barking. It depends on the dog, of course, but it's just like that deep, rich banging noise
Mm.
that are very rough. That's basically the extent of like what I can hear without the hearing aids. It's really, I don't know. With a sensorineural hearing loss, it can be hard to explain to people too, because with the hearing aids on, it amplifies everything and I can hear. It's not like I can't hear, but what it's hard to explain is it's kind of like when you're in a conversation and you're hearing like every other word or every third word. You kind of have to fill in the gaps and try to guess what that person is saying by lip reading, facial cues, body language, and you're really observing the person.
Hmm.
So I think some people that are not used to like me looking directly at them can be a little intimidated because I'm like looking, and I don't really like look off that much. I am like intently looking at you as a person talking, and it takes a lot of effort to listen. And I take it for granted because I've been doing it for so long. I forget all the time that I have a hearing impairment. I don't actively wake up and say, I have a hearing impairment,
Yeah.
it's not, it's just a part of who I am. It's a part of my life. Um, but yeah, the hearing loss itself, I would say like, you know, sorry, I'm like trying to find the right words for it, but it's like you're in a room and there's all these people talking and you're only catching, every 5 words, and you have to actively
Yeah.
figure out how to piece it together. So
Yeah.
it can be challenging, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. I hope that answers that.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And I can only imagine how difficult it is in practice because for me, who I assume I have very normal hearing, in public settings, sometimes I connect to other conversations,
Mm.
and I have to focus. And sometimes if I'm overstimulated, I just can't talk to anyone, and I'm like, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
it's amazing that you've like adapted so well.
Hmm.
And not even just that, but like you're thriving in your life, right? Like you've built a business, have rich relationships, you're doing all these things
Yeah.
in spite of. Um, so
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
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 So weddings are loud, they're fast, they're emotional and chaotic. What parts of like a wedding day are uniquely challenging from like a hearing standpoint?
Well, I think luckily for me, I'm there before the storm, if you will, because I'm there like, depending on the wedding and what time it starts, I can be there from like, 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., depending on obviously the schedule of the day. But
Mm.
I generally do okay in loud settings, only because what happens in loud settings is a lot of times when people are talking and they want you to hear. People do this even if they don't have a hearing loss. They start yelling and they start enunciating and they start like being more animated in talking. Whereas in a quiet setting, a lot of times people are mumbling and they just assume you
Uh,
hear, and they're like, or they're talking like this, like, oh, no, 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 no. Like, some people
Yeah.
just do it where they kind of trail off and their faces kind of just go somewhere else when they're talking and they don't realize it because it's
Mm.
just habit. So in loud settings, it's interesting because sometimes people are doing a better job of enunciating
yeah.
because because they have to, because either they can't hear themselves or they just like want to make sure that you're hearing what they're saying.
Yeah.
Um, and then, there's been times where I've had to ask people to text me and say, please just text me what you're saying. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I try to be a good advocate for myself. Like, I mean, if I'm not understanding something, I'll let you know, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try to find my way to understand what's being said. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, it can be challenging, yes, but I have not, like, I can't remember a time where I was like, that was so hard. But like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, not just like prior to weddings and prior to this job. So I've just learned to adapt really well.
Yeah.
Um, so
What do you wish that clients, planners, venues, like, vendor team, creative teams, um, knowing that you're hearing impaired, like what do you wish that they understood more?
I would say, I'm trying to think. I mean, it's a good question because nothing really comes to mind right off the bat.
Mm.
But I would say maybe just like being a little more conscious. I don't want to feel like I'm a hindrance. I don't want to feel like we need to
Of
restructure
course. Yeah.
the whole day. But I think, just like sending a text message if it's a really important detail, texting
Yeah.
it instead of
Mm.
verbally shouting it from across the room. There's been times when, it is a dynamic situation and there's people talking from across the room or they're all the way down at the other end of the ballroom or whatever it is. And I may not catch that. So I guess just being like aware of the fact that I might not hear you if you're trying to talk to me from a far distance, or if there is a lot of noise going on and it's something really important that I need to know, just sending me a text message, just saying, hey, I just want to make sure you heard this. I mean, and they don't even have to say that. They can just say, this is important, blah, 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 whatever. The bride
Yeah.
needs her bouquet. Things like that
Yeah.
would be very helpful.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Um,
Yeah. It,
So,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go.
No, me? Okay. So, kind of pivoting a little bit, but not really, because this kind of brings up the topic of like working with vendors, and we talk a lot about hospitality and industry for our clients, but I don't really think we necessarily talk about it enough when it comes to vendors. So, do you have any particular thoughts on like the experience working with vendors? And we kind of touched on how we can have better hospitality towards you,
yeah.
but just in like a general sense, do you have any thoughts on that?
Um, I mean, I think that, for like events, like if there's, are you talking about like for a wedding, like if we're all
Just,
working at a wedding,
yeah,
or if
so it's
we're
it's
like,
just like yeah, like we're working together. Like
As a team.
we all have things to do. We all are trying to serve our couples, but um, not all vendors are play nice together. You
yeah,
know, and some of that is capacity. And some of it's personality, but I think it's something that we could always all work on for sure. But it could also be a touchy subject because you don't want to call any particular behaviors out or anything. But I still think you may only be interacting with a vendor for an hour at the event, but I still think it matters.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think just honestly, just practicing kindness in general, I mean, I think that's something that not just exclusive to the wedding industry, but in as a whole, everyone has different things, different challenges that we all live with on a daily basis, and some are visible, some are not. And I think, you know, just expressing kindness and a little patience, because there are some times, like for example, for me, if there's been plenty of times when someone's talking to me and I have no idea that they said something to me. And my daughter, she's now 16, she comes to work with me every now and then. And, she'll be like, Mom, that person was talking to you. You didn't even know they were talking to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And like little things like that.
Yeah.
If you see somebody not responding to you, don't assume they're being rude. Maybe just assume, oh, they probably didn't hear me.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
really easy for a lot of people to think like, oh, yeah, I think some people just go right to the worst of like, oh, that person's ignoring me. But it
Yeah.
could very well be that,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, I have the hearing impairment or I have ear pods in or, whatever. So I
Yeah.
think just, I think in general, people can move with a little more, I'm not saying that people don't, but just a little more patience, a little
Yeah.
more kindness and just recognition of the fact that we all have our things.
Yeah.
And, sometimes some days are great. Some days, for me in particular, I just had my hearing aids clean yesterday and I had thought that I thought I was losing hearing. And I went and got my
Yeah.
hearing tested and they were like, no, you just had a lot of moisture in your hearing aids. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. It wasn't that,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, you shared that with us before we started, and I love that you shared that now because I yeah, like crisis averted, just humidity.
It's scary, right? But I,
yeah.
but
So one of the things that you said was just rewinding a little bit about like if someone doesn't hear you, right? It's not that you're being rude. I think that a practice that a lot of us can do just in life is to take things less personally, because a lot of the time it's not personal, right? There's always like some sort of misunderstanding, usually, or like not hearing someone, it's not automatically like, oh, you're ignoring them because you're
right.
rude or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Don't assume the worst.
yeah, most of us are not assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll
I
text
think
you the ones who are, but otherwise, no.
Yeah. No, I think pretty much that you hit it on the head. Don't assume the worst.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's true. Like s- I don't know. I think it's very easy to a lot of my friends too that have hearing impairment too have said the same thing, or I've been with them and I see that somebody like started talking to them and they completely ignored them and then that other person's like "Ah, what a jerk,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, 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 she just can't hear you.
Yeah. She's literally deaf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had somebody like a
Yeah.
long time ago, somebody said to me, what are you, deaf? And I was like, yeah, actually I am.
That's really funny.
So I shut that guy up, and I don't think he'll ever say that to anyone ever
Yeah.
again.
Gotta learn.
I
Some of
love,
us learn the hard way.
Yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
funny.
So
Yeah, it is funny.
do you feel that your hearing impairment has like influenced like your visual sensitivity, like your attention to detail or the way like you read a room? Like I imagine yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think very much so. I think
Yeah.
because one sense is dampened, that other senses are a
Right.
lot more sensitive. So
Yeah.
I think that I see things, I feel like I perceive things on a much richer, deeper level.
Yeah.
Um, I've taken, my dad once was like, here, take this color test. I want to see how you rate. And I had gotten like a perfect score. And you can
Wow.
basically, like, I could discern the color differences that were only like a smidge off. And I was like, oh, duh, these are obviously four different colors. And my dad
Yeah.
was like, it's only one color.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so it's really interesting. I think that there really is some truth to that, that when
Yeah.
because I see things, I can sense color differences. I can see if something has a little more blue or more, if it's more warm or,
Yeah.
I can detect those things pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I also think too that I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I feel like sometimes I feel things a little deeper, which can be a gift and a curse because, you
Yeah.
don't always want to feel everything.
Yeah. Oh, I
Um,
feel you, sister. I feel you on
Yeah.
that one. Can I just turn this off?
yeah. So like sometimes I can sense a person's mood really well. And
Ugh,
because I'm so used to having to read people's faces, I can tell when someone's upset. I can tell when someone's like annoyed. And those
yeah.
little things, those little nuances are really hard to process all the time
Yeah.
because, you're constantly reading for not just to like understand what people are saying, but then you're like, oh, now I know how this person's feeling too. And
Yep.
you don't
Yeah.
always want to feel all of that. So
Yeah.
it can be hard,
Yeah.
and for that reason, I will have to be very careful and cognizant of that when I'm going into a large social setting, just because I can get overwhelmed with
Oh,
too
yep.
much, it can,
Yep.
it's like overstimulating sometimes,
Yeah.
where I'm like, okay, I need to go away for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a walk away for a couple minutes of quiet,
Yep.
like certain wedding events that we have in our industry, sometimes they're so loud and the music is just like crazy loud. And
Yeah.
I mean, it could also be age too, but I feel like I have to sometimes step away and be like, all
Yeah.
right, I can breathe again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
We use earplugs at
Oh,
receptions.
I mean, I have to. I mean,
Oh,
at this point, like,
Yeah.
damage has been done because I
Yeah.
didn't wear earplugs for like the
yeah.
first
Yeah.
decade
Well,
of our business.
yeah. And when you were talking about the cilia, it reminded me in college, I took an audio course and then they were describing it as like, it almost has like a lifespan. And so people who go to a lot of concerts or listen to really loud music, it beats it down and beats it down. And eventually it stops coming back up. Right?
Yeah,
So it
pretty
can't
much.
process the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it is an age thing too, by the way. Like,
Yeah, I think it
yeah.
is too.
Yeah, I'm like I don't like going to like bars that have like live bands because I'm like I can't talk to anyone, I'm
Yeah.
like and I'm I'm not a big live music person in general, but yeah,
Oh, and I am,
and
but
she
I'm
is,
wearing the
so
earplugs.
yeah,
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
fine.
no, I get that. I think like I mean, I have to be prepared. Like if I know I'm going into a concert, I know that my social interaction is going to be pretty limited. I know
Mhm.
I'm just there to listen to the music and hang out and just smile and have a good time,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But if we're going with if I'm going with like a group of people, then I'm going to be more inclined to be like, all right, let's find like the quietest part of the space, or you
Yeah.
know,
yeah,
not but in that case, I'll be a strong advocate for myself and I'll say, hey
yeah,
guys, once we're in there, I'm going to be out. Like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
be very engaged, and don't
yeah,
take it personal. It's just going to be because I can't engage that much.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, but certain situations like that, people are not really socializing that much anyway. So it's not like I'm missing out tremendously on
yeah,
that anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. What's really interesting is so I've been a lifelong swimmer, and one thing that's really cool is sound bounces off water, and
Mhm.
so there are certain voices that when I'm in the water, like if I'm in the water like up to about here, I can hear a little bit more with
Oh,
certain voices. Yeah, like the voices bounce off the water, and I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to pretend like I know
yeah,
exactly all about that, but for me it's very real. There's certain
yeah.
male voices when they're talking in the water, I'm like, I can hear this person, this is amazing.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
it's
huh.
kind of fascinating.
That's very
Yeah.
fascinating.
It,
Yeah.
it reminds me of I watched this like documentary on this kid one time, and he was blind, and he would do a clicking sound with his mouth to ricochet off objects around him to
Oh wow.
navigate. He was incredibly sensitive with his hearing. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a similar kind of concept, which is just, I never would have thought of that.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 So in thinking about hearing loss and kind of disability in general, um, what would you say to someone that wants to be more thoughtful in those situations, and like how should they engage with someone that they know has an impairment or disability?
For hearing in particular, or just
I,
any?
I any but hearing for sure. Just like
Yeah.
because I assume I know what your answer is, but I just would obviously rather you answer it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess, with anything, I think not being afraid to just straight up ask the person like, "Hey, how can I best communicate with you? Like what's the
Yeah.
best way for me to be effective at communicating with you?" And If someone said that to me, I would be really happy and think
Yeah.
it was great that you respect me enough to approach me as a human, not,
Yeah.
not be afraid to come to me. Because I think what happens is a lot of people are afraid they're going to offend them or, make me upset or, I think it's really easy to feel that way, but it's also like validating to me to have someone say to me, "Hey, I want to be able to communicate with you effectively. How can I do that? How can I best serve you in that way?" And I'll just straight up tell you, "Oh, just make sure you're looking at me. Make sure that I can see your face when you're speaking with me.
Yeah.
If you're like a couple tables away, or like at a wedding setting." And you have something to say to me, either walk up to me and make sure that I hear you, or call really loud and make sure that I see that you're talking to me before you start speaking. Like if someone's talking to me from behind and they're yelling, or even if they're not yelling, I might register that somebody's saying something, but I might not
Yeah.
realize it's for me. I might think, oh, it's probably for someone else, or because I get so busy and I'm in my head just working on what I'm doing and I'm focused.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think just making me aware that you're speaking to me is number one, especially in a job setting, because I'm not as focused as I would be in a social setting,
Yeah.
because, I'm doing my job.
Yeah. You're doing your work.
um, yeah. And, just not being afraid to, like, if somebody is blind, like, asking them, is there a specific way, like, how can I best help, like, how can I best communicate with you,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that you are catching everything I say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
communication to get the best
Yeah.
Just
communication.
yeah.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah.
Be
And
direct. Yeah.
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 That makes
So,
sense.
It does make sense.
And then I think you and I have chatted about this a little bit previously about like there are obviously other creatives in our industry who have hearing loss and disabilities and challenges. Um, Two questions. One, is there any sort of like community for a group of people like that? And then two, is there something that you would say to people who are either in the industry or trying to get an industry that have, these disadvantages in kind of a word of encouragement or anything like that to them?
yeah, I mean, I say go for it, like, if no matter what ails you, I don't even like saying that, because
Yeah.
to me, I look at my disability as almost a blessing, because I get to see the world in a different way than
Yeah.
most people do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I don't look at it like it's a problem or a disability. I feel like that word is
Yeah.
it can be so dirty,
Yeah. It's
It's
like, yeah,
negative.
there's like this shameful.
Negative
Yeah.
Yeah.
connotation.
Yeah, I would say just embrace who you are and
Yeah.
be unapologetic about going for what you want, because, at the end of the day, we only have one chance and we only have one shot at life. And I feel like we have to learn how to play the hand that we're dealt,
Yeah.
and you use that to the best of your ability,
Yeah.
and then lean on other people to help you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's something that I probably could have been better at and struggle with sometimes, is asking for more help. I think because when I was younger, I wanted to prove to everyone, no, I can do this. I can do what you can do. I can, excel. I can be smart. I can do this. And so I think, leaning on people if you do need help is really important, but just going at it with 100% ferocity and, passion, and if it's something you love, not letting what physically holds you back um, push you to go further, and mentally, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, don't let what physically stops you mentally move forward,
Yeah.
because I feel like the sky's the limit. If you set your mind to it, I believe you can accomplish whatever you want. So
Yeah. That's beautiful.
It was very beautiful. And I think that that's where we need to drop the mic and walk away. 'Cause
And just like one
well, thank you.
one final thought that popped in my head as you were sharing that is that the advice works for fully able people, whereas you're suggesting if you have a physical, difficulty, don't let that mentally stop you. Whereas I think a lot of people are mentally stopping themselves from physically doing things.
Yeah.
100%.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the exact
Yeah.
problem in the opposite sense. So I feel like your
Yeah.
advice is good for everyone to hear,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I get in my own head. I
Oh, of
think we
course.
all do, you know.
Are you human?
Yeah, and especially when you're creative and
Yeah.
sensitive, like it
Yeah.
can be very easy to get in your own head and say, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not, whatever. And it's really important to learn how to be your best cheerleader and tell yourself, no, I can keep doing this. Like I always think about like when I'm swimming, sometimes I want to, if I'm going like long distances, like later this week, I'm swimming 3.1 miles in a lake. So,
Wow.
but I tell myself like, just keep going. One more step,
Yeah.
one more paddle. And
Yeah.
then, and it's like those little teeny baby steps add up. And then all of a sudden, here you are, having a business of
Three and
your
a half
own.
miles.
And
Yep.
yeah, 3.1 miles away.
Yeah.
So I think that's for me, one of my biggest pieces of advice is fighting through the inner voices that can happen and being a cheerleader that's louder than those voices that can quell us and, put a stop to what we want to do in life. So,
Mm,
I don't know, it's making me emotional.
I know.
No, it's that's great though. No, thank you for sharing all that and for being here with us.
Yeah.
yeah, no, thank you for having me. Um, yeah, it can be. I realize now that like I don't share that much because I don't want to be perceived as somebody, that can't or that with or less than, and I think that's
Right.
something that I struggle with from like my childhood to now. And that's something that I'm actively aware of, but I fight to make sure that I can keep going, and I think that this was really important for me to do because it's showing myself and hopefully the people watching that you just have to keep going and believe in yourself.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so
100%. And I think that this was a really, really beautiful podcast to have because I think it's important, right? Like
Yeah.
it's important.
yeah,
And real quick, I just love that you mentioned that you don't like the word disability because yeah, when I was saying that, it didn't even feel right, right? It feels like in a way, it's almost like a gift.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so because it allows, not just us, the people who have said disabilities, but it also I think opens other people's eyes to seeing like we're not all exactly the same. We're
Yeah.
not carbon copies, we
Yeah.
are given different things in our lives
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
very different reasons.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
I
that's a
think,
gift.
Yeah.
And that is so beautiful.
I
yeah,
think it's um a gift to be able to be around different able people and
Yeah.
people who are different than you, and you have supported us for years with a Night to Shine prom that we're involved in, and being part of that for us has been we've been doing it for over 10 years now, and it's a prom for people with special needs, for those who don't know, and it's just the most beautiful, heartwarming experience, just being with people, and then it makes you. Sometimes I'm like, I want to be part of this community. Like, I don't want to go back to it, but it's just, just to the point of, like being exposed to different people, I think is a gift. And you can be in a room with, people at this prom, for example, and they don't, they don't look at themselves the same way others might look at them. Like to them, it's not,
yeah,
it's just, they're just them.
Yeah.
yeah,
And they're beautiful.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I, I think we just need to work on collectively as a community in the world, really, is just having less fear towards people that are different,
Different. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just treating them with the same respect, dignity, and integrity that everybody, deserves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, Yeah, I think it's special to kind of see how the different the differences in us are to be embraced and not
Mhm.
shied away from. So that is something like, and what you were saying earlier, I don't think there are any communities for, at least not to my knowledge. Might be inspired to start something, because I do think it's really important, especially for the youth, to be empowered and inspired by, you know, I'm not saying me, but people like me or, that have been around for a while that
Yeah,
can show you what's possible when you just go for it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm perfect, far from it, but, definitely have ways to go with different things, but it's not about that. That's just life in general. It's like a journey. You're always going to be
yeah,
trying to get better and improve. But I think just having that kind of role model to see that you can just actively go for it
Yeah.
and dive in head first and worry about everything else later, and kind of
yeah,
build on that,
Yeah.
instead of letting the fear consume you. And as far as like, I think that as a whole, the wedding industry too, I probably should be a better advocate, but I think like immersing, like for like those really big events, it could be really cool to, try to incorporate ways to make somebody like me like have priority seating, like put me up in the front as like a,
yeah,
a reserved spot, just so I have a very clear view of like everybody up there, and maybe have
yeah.
like live closed captioning, and but not make it so obvious, just making it
Right.
a seamless part, like designed into the event,
Yes.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
so.
Intentional.
I feel so. First, let us know what the name of your group is when you start it, so we can promote it. And then second, you should start a service of consulting for people who put on events to be able to, better achieve these things that you're speaking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's needed. We go even in professional events and corporate events. Like we've all been to all these different types of events, and it's very rare to see any sort of intentional accommodations. Um,
yeah,
and when we were building Gather, our little group, we when people sign up, we ask them about any of these needs so that we know if they're going to be at an event that we can do anything that we can possibly to
That is really
accommodate
good.
that.
yeah,
But we're talking about micro events, so it's very different level for sure. But I think, you know, it it just takes a little intention,
Yeah.
but would make a
yeah,
world of difference.
And care.
yeah, yeah. And you nailed it. It's just a little bit of intention. It doesn't have to be this grand gesture that puts everything on hold for people with,
Right,
differences, because it can be something
right,
as subtle as, just having like a space for people with wheelchairs, or,
Yeah.
yeah,
if somebody does have, something neurological, like maybe put them in a place where they can easily feel like they can leave if they need to, if
Yeah.
things get to be
yeah,
overstimulating, or,
Right.
anything,
yeah,
just to
Yep.
kind of make it feel more comfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then
And
not virtue signaling with the like how
yeah.
you like you said, don't make it a big deal. Don't make it like look how great we are because we do this. Like just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
accommodate.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just like donating. Like if you're like making a big donation, I think the best way to do it is not tell anyone,
Right.
just do it, and know that it came from a good place in your heart.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and I will speak to Gather. I really like the Gather events just because, I mean, I don't want to make anyone think I'm promoting you guys here, but I am in a way, because
Thank you.
I love the small group. I love the small group setting, because for me, I thrive in small groups. I do better when, it's like 10 people or less, because then I can have the opportunity to really dig in deeper and listen.
Yeah.
And, I don't miss things. And sometimes in those big group settings, I do miss things, and I'm aware of that,
Yeah.
and it's just become a part of my life,
Yeah.
knowing that I'm going to miss out on certain things. But I've always kind of come back to, if the people, if whoever I'm in a setting with, if they really respect me a lot and they want me to understand, they'll make sure that I understand. And I'm not saying that people that don't do that don't respect me, but
Right.
it's almost like the people that care, those are the ones that I'm worried the most about. They're the ones that I know I'm going to have that deeper connection with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's just like any setting, really. You have certain settings where you're fully into it, and then sometimes you're like, man, this wasn't for me, and that's okay. You know, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I feel like we could keep going forever. So we're going to stop here. Episode 2 coming out next year.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you again. I really appreciate it. It's just been wonderful and a very different episode than we've done, before. So
Yeah.
we feel lucky that you agreed to be on here with us.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate both of you so much. So thank you for taking the time.
Of course, I'm going to do a fake goodbye now, and then we'll hit stop recording. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Kate.